of it and jumps your business. So that's a good thing that the IA does. Anyway, Chris, I was reading a story today about farmers and a museum.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me is about Sacramento has an acclaimed museum of science and curiosity, and it opened, I believe, in 2021. And they've had over 300,000 visitors that tour the facility, which features dozens of interactive exhibits on topics such as healthcare, nature, space exploration, and what we do here, talk about water. And what was popular about that they had is the Water Challenge exhibit. And they include 3 interactive displays sponsored by Cultivate California and its nonprofit organization, which is the California Farm Water Coalition, that illustrates how farmers are working hard to use less water. You know, it's interesting, we carried a lot of news about California and Texas and Florida and all around the country. And a lot of people are complaining that the farms are using too much money. The almond industry, the alfalfa industry, the cows for dairy.
Yep.
It goes on and on and on. That they want to take water away from them. Well, if you start doing all of that, or like the latest one not in Arizona, California, with the cow flagellants deal, where they want you to get a bag, a special little muffle bag, and put it on the butt of the cow, so it captures the flagellants. But
I'm going to watch that. I will not participate. I will be an audience member for that.
I just think to take away the backbone of this country, which is farming, is ridiculous. That's my own personal view. And I don't know. I'm glad that some science museum picked this up to talk and show the audience that comes in there about how it's important and how farmers do use a lot less water and using smart technology. It's not like back in the 1800s. I mean, things now are scientific. And I mean, not only do they help engineer crops and find out what's the best way to grow them and what soils and, if you use chemicals or you do organic, but how to use water more wisely in that. And I think having more of these kind of things around is awesome. I wish a lot of other museums and science centers around the country would do the same.
There are a couple around, actually, because, the last trip I made to the Midwest, right, there are several farm or agriculture-related museums in places you wouldn't expect. And so I've been to a couple of them. I have family in the Fargo-Moorhead area, Fargo, North Dakota, Moorhead, Minnesota, 2 cities that straddle the river up there. There's a North Dakota State has I don't think it's called a museum. I'm trying to look it up right now. I don't think it's actually called a museum, Rob. But it is a showcase where you can go in and look at different stuff for sunflowers, right? That's the big crop up there in Fargo Moorhead, or if you've had a few beers, Margot's forehead. But there's so much interesting stuff in that. I mean, it's small, right? It's a couple of rooms, but we spent myself and my brother-in-law spent a couple hours in there. It was very interesting. And then I was in Kearney, Nebraska, just a few years ago, right after right after we could get out and travel again. And there's a museum there too, ag-centered museum. Just an interesting place to go to. Corn, wheat, great videos, all the different tools and implements that have been used over the years, decades, and now almost a millennium. Just terrific stuff to look in there. So you're right. Whenever you're traveling, just look in the city you're at or close by, and just look up places to go see, museums and sites and things like that. You'll be surprised at what's out there.
Yeah, amazing. There's also a story going on about agencies in California recycling the wastewater into drinking water, as demand seems to be obviously growing with population and new things that are happening. A lot of water agencies that you and I know are doing that in California, and like in Orange County and Los Angeles County, and even on our special 6-part segment that we're doing with the consortium with ConocoPhillips and such, where they're doing what's called produced water, basically taking wastewater from different areas, different whether it's from desal plants or oils, well drilling and things like that, and converting it into drinkable water. Which is, I think the technology, and more than I think, I really believe that the technology is advancing very, very quickly into
Agreed.
how do you deal with the brine, how do you deal with all
Agreed.
these other things, and that's a big thing, and people really need to know more about that. A lot of people only hear one side of the story. Oh, we don't want brackish this, and we don't want that, and we're not going to do this and that. But there's more to the story about utilizing water any which way we can get, and I think that's so important to that. I know just this week a judge granted an injunction in the must be a news editing coming to us from NBC. But anyway, as I was saying, a judge grants some injunction in the Delta Conveyance Project, and so a lot of these environmental groups appeal the court ruling in favor of the site's reservoir. So there's going to be, as we had with Chris Austin the last couple of weeks, lawyers are going to make lots of money in California and all these other states fighting regulations about how do we get more water and what do we do. Do we raise different reservoirs like Oro and Shasta and other ones, Klamath. I mean, it's got to be to a point where we got to understand that when we run out of water, we run out of water.
Yeah,
and that's the end of it. And I don't want to see farming be crushed. I don't want to see us down to 5 gallon per capita per day. I know that's a crazy number, but I mean they're shooting from now 50, 55. And they want to go even less than that, down to 30. At least in California is talking that. So people got to figure a way. How are they going to use water more smart, more efficiently?
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, I'm just going to make a comment on the desal issue that you just brought up a little while ago, Rob, because there's a ton of pundits out there with opinions. There's a lot of research going on. There's folks that think that desal is not the panacea it's cracked up to be, so to speak, right? All the brine and all the other issues that go along with that, not to mention the power consumption required to operate a desal plant. And I just want to harken back to the guest we had on a couple of months ago that's going up with tankers to get fresh glacier water, right? Capture fresh glacier, pristine water. No chemicals in that, no PFAS, no forever chemicals. This is fresh water, and deliver it to water-scarce places in the country, like off of East Africa and West African coast.
And they're supposed to be doing that, I think, in August.
I think that's right. Yeah,
and even to go back further, Chris, you remember we had a gentleman on who owned a company called the Water Train.
That's right.
And that was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, where he bought, I don't know what it is today, he bought 32 tanker rail cars and was going to haul water from anywhere in the country to anywhere else so they can get water. I mean, everybody's coming up with slick ideas. They still talk about, which we also had on, cloud seeding and things like that, and people who ran, I'll call it the produced water and things of that sort. So I mean, people got to start really thinking what's going to happen, because right now, hey, you turn your water faucet on, guess what? Water comes out, and nobody thinks about it until they get their bill. And as costs to put new, what's the right word I'm looking for, equipment and infrastructure in the water. Money got to come from somewhere.
Well, look, 3 months ago, back in April, what was World Water Day, as you're aware, we did a segment on it, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs as they were calling them, number 6, I think, was the one that said, hey, they're encouraging countries, industries, developers, thought leaders in the world to look at unconventional ways of water, of saving water, conserving water, or providing water. produced water is a big issue with that, right? A water that's not usable from fracking or oil and gas mining and development. Those sort of things are starting now to really run up the scale, and people looking at those as alternatives. So there's such a ton of issues going on in the world. I will point this out, Rob, and I'll ask you a question first, because you remember we went back and we looked at the percentage of water that's used for industry, for ag, and for households, right? Or whether it's indoor and outdoor use. Do you remember what those percentages were? And these were for the United States, right? It was like, 70% was outdoor use and 30% was indoor use. And I just got a interesting chart from the United Nations, and it's like top water consumers by industry, kind of like a snapshot page. And so on a global basis, right, all over the world, you look at water consumption for industry by industry, and this is how it looks, right? So 70% is a good number still. So 70% of fresh water consumption is for agriculture. 20% is for industrial consumption, right? Building things, operating plants, all that sort of stuff. And only 10% is for household use, and that's from 2021. I'll reference it. It's the Journal of Ecological Engineering from 2021. So they just posted those numbers. I found that very interesting to look at those.
Oh, absolutely. Again, going back to the first story I was talking about with water for farmers, and people don't really understand. The majority of people in the United States don't understand the technology that farmers have today versus what they had or didn't have 50 years ago or 20 years ago, and they are making a difference. They are helping to do that, working with biologists to help plants grow in different ways. Even my favorite subject, I talk about a lot is the vertical farming, where it's done in a factory building, a warehouse, and they simulate the lights with the sun with LEDs, and it's pretty much organic, because they don't need chemicals in there to spray for bugs and stuff, and these are things that I think will help the future. I know they're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Things of putting big plastic balls in the canals to cover for the heat. I know they sound crazy, or even cover them with solar panels. Make a solar farm out of it. I think that's a smart way to do it. They got to worry about evaporation and things of that sort. And I think that's the way to go. But again, I think education to the public, to the world, is really, really important, and that's gotta help save what's going to happen and help make change. Because if they don't do that.
Sorry, Rob. I was just going to say we got to ask Chris Austin about that, because I know that she's read a couple of papers on putting solar panels over the California aqueduct.
Yes.
There's lots of plans to do that, and there's equity available to do it. So that'll be something interesting to watch. Let me go back and I want to revert to the United Nations chart I was looking at. So just for fun, as I said, it was broken down in industry. What do you think, Rob, is the top 5 industry uses of water? Right, we know agriculture is number one by a wide generation, but by a wide margin, by the way. But power generation is the second.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Number 3 is industrial manufacturing. Number 4 is mining and mineral processing. And number 5 is food and beverage processing.
Wow. Big disparity between that and the other. But, that's where the technology is going to help in the production of water, taking used water, cleaning it up, and putting it back as potable water. And all those top 4 or 5 that you just mentioned, they're all going to be affected by change, and hopefully they're affected by change coming up soon with new technologies.
Yeah,
I think being an engineer, when I started, it would take 10 years to see a change in technology. Now it's like every 6 months.
Yeah, the velocity is going crazy.
Yeah.
But it's good. I mean, that's the way, that's the way we are. We have to keep up. I think we're put down to the fact that we get done what we need to get done in the time we have to do it based on the demand, right? It's the Weyrich theory. This is what I learned in college way back when I was blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
when I was young. Hey, let me. I got to tell you this, man, because I'm just reading through this report. It's fascinating. I'm going to send it to you after the show today. But just looking at that 10% that's for household use that I talked about, right? 70% fresh water consumption for ag, 20% fresh water consumption by industry, and 10% for household. Here's the breakdown globally. Remember, globally, here's the breakdown of that 10%. 29% is for bathing, showers, baths, and cleaning and all that. 22% is for toilets and washing dishes and things like that, right?
Well, that's
25% is for human consumption. In other words, it's what we drink and cook with and all that stuff. And of course, if you're doing the math with me, that doesn't add up to quite 100%. There's a few percent left over, and that remaining is left for leaks and disappearance and evaporation and stuff like that.
That's amazing. I know you know the story of another gentleman. I won't mention his name. He's a great friend of both you and me. And when he was doing the radio show with me, and we went to a couple trade shows, and they had some company giving away a product. And what the product was, really interesting, is that after you use your toilet, do not flush it. You spray this thing into it, and you leave it all day until you go to sleep, and then you flush it. So you can keep, I guess, it makes it sort of like a porta potty. The guys who come in the truck and dump the stuff out. I was telling my wife about it, because he took a couple bottles home. And I told my wife what he did. She says, "You're not going to bring that to our house." I go, "No, why?" And she says, "You think we're going to have people use the toilet and just spray this in there and leave everything that's in there all day long? Even if it doesn't smell, that would be disgusting." But I don't know if that company's still in business with that idea. They gave away lots of bottles. I'm sure they gave away, I think, almost 2,500 bottles of this stuff to people. But, I mean, people are thinking of all different ways how to save water. And, every time you flush, you waste a couple gallons, or if you have a low-flow toilet, not as much. But I just find that funny. But people really believe that's a good way to doing it. I don't know. I would think of a different way to do it.
Yeah, there was a interesting thing I saw in when I was traveled last year. As you know, went to Europe for a little while, and in a hotel, the sink was on top of the toilet bowl, and you used the sink to wash your hands and do whatever, and the water drained into the toilet bowl, and that's what you flushed with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, now that's a smart idea.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I thought it was terrific.
I wish we get more of those ideas. Those are great. Anyway, it's time for our commercial break, and then we're going to bring on our featured guest. And so everybody who's listening, we'll be back in just a moment. And we have a special featured guest that's going to be a very interesting conversation, very knowledgeable person. And he'll give us lots of information on what's happening in Arizona with water. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Drainage is a valuable addition to most any landscaping project, and the most common stormwater problems are easy to identify when you know what to look for. Before we begin, a few quick notes. In each of the cases you're about to see, the installation of a drainage solution will likely take only a few hours, but can vary depending on the products used, the length of the pipe runs, depth, soil type, and other factors. Also, call before you dig. Do not break ground until all buried utilities have been clearly marked. First up, downspout runoff. This is the cause of many of the most notorious drainage problems, and the symptoms are plain to see, ranging from washed-out landscape beds to serious foundation problems like wet crawl spaces and even flooded basements. Compared to the price of repairing these issues if left untreated long-term, the drainage products to solve them now are very cost-effective. For areas where no trees overhang the roof or there are leaf guards, downspout adapters are ideal for connecting gutters to drainage pipe. Where trees overhang, use catch basins or low-profile adapters with grates and basin filters to help block debris and collect discharge. These should all move water away from the foundation to a safe area downstream. Pro tip, the average home has at least 2 downspouts, 4 if the garage is attached. Next, let's look at problems from water collecting in low areas. This can cause soil saturation, and in more severe cases, ponding. In times of prolonged rainfall, these areas become muddy and unusable, and a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Product solutions for water and lawn problems include grates to block large debris from entering the drainage piping, and catch basins with sumps allowing smaller debris to settle for removal during maintenance. Both solutions should be connected to a drainage pipe to move water away from the problem area to a safe discharge location. For situations when water can't be discharged to another location, the NDS Flowwell Engineered Dry Well allows for detention and infiltration of collected runoff. Rather than a barrier, view problems like this as an upsell opportunity. Here's another hint. Call your customers shortly after rainfall when these problems will already be top of mind and a priority to fix. Another common drainage problem is flooded or oversaturated landscape beds in natural areas. Just like lawns, beds that remain flooded for extended periods of time can encourage mosquito breeding. Ornamental plants often become stressed, are more susceptible to disease, and can even perish. Additionally, flooded landscape beds adjacent to a structure can contribute to foundation problems. Using domed atrium grates as a pipe inlet, or with a catch basin or low-profile adapter, will help solve this problem. Atrium grates are most suited for landscape beds in natural areas as they drain runoff flows containing mulch and other debris better than flat grates. NDS filters in a catch basin provide additional protection for the drainage system by preventing smaller debris from entering the downstream piping. The grates, basins, or low-profile adapters connect to a drainage pipe to move water away to a safe area. Pop-up emitters are a good choice at the point of discharge. Keep an eye out for symptoms of these common drainage problems on your next site visit. Once you've identified the problem and the possible solution, it's time to connect with Site 1 and NDS. With their resources and support, you can add drainage to your services and get the job done right.
All right, so welcome back to the second half of the AutoZone show, and we love the show, and to those of you who are watching the video link, you could see the commercial that was run, and we like to have Site 1 do that because they not only, as a sponsor, and sell everything in landscape and hardscape, but they also make educational videos, which we like to show so people in the industry can understand it, and even for lay people who have just a homeowner who needs to know a little bit more. So we thank them for doing that with us, and we appreciate that. Well, Chris, we have a very special person coming on, and I've talked to him a couple times, short times, but I'm excited about this guy. He has passion, and I like that. His name is Gary Garcia Snyder. He's a Republican, just so we tell everybody. He does his campaign funding traditionally, and his biography, Gary, he's running for the Arizona State House, and so I just want to make that clear. And but he has a good background in water and farming and other things, and he's amazing talking with him. He was born in Texas to a military family and moved to Arizona in 2003. He has international business studies from the State University and additional training and schooling in water conservation and soil management. He's a serial entrepreneur and a pro baseball player. He operates the Southern Winter Baseball League. Hey, I'm into that, which plays games in Arizona and Mexico. Gary is a successful small businessman and a Republican activist who spreads the party's messages of opportunity in both English and Spanish. His hobbies include sports, family, church events, and rooting for the Diamondbacks. Go Diamondbacks. And he also works with an organization called SMILE, which is a local charity that helps the disabled. So I want to welcome Mr. Snyder. Gary, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about water.
Great. I'm going to let Chris start off with maybe getting a little bit more of your background and talk about things that you do from the agricultural world, just so we put it all in perspective, and then we can get into some more detail about where water is in Arizona. Chris?
Gary, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on. We love this. Rob and I love this time of year, especially in election years, and I know that's important to many, many people that are listeners to our show, especially there in the state of Arizona, because it is such a substantial ag provider to our nation. And so kind of, give us a little bit more about your background. And I know there's some certifications, grower certifications involved, because Rob provided me with some information. So just for our listeners' sake, can you kind of give us a little broader background on how you're connected to ag yourself?
Of course. Be glad. Very important to be educated in agriculture, especially in Arizona, especially being on the lower basin. So I live here in Yuma County. Yuma County, if you know, is the Rio Colorado River. We are 90% of our growing capacity of yield is lettuce. We're one of the biggest growers in the world and in the nation for lettuce. So we do use quite a bit of the Colorado River as well. So when I moved to Arizona back in 2000, mid-2000, I decided to live in Yuma County. My sister was Border Patrol. So when I moved to Yuma, I saw how beautiful it was with agriculture, fresh lettuce for the first time. And I saw what it took. It took a lot of effort. It's not easy. And agriculture are very hard workers, especially first generation, second generation, third generation, even up to seventh generation farmers. And I've talked to them, and they've empowered me. They've got me so interested that I decided to go to college about 3 years ago to learn about water conservation, soil, more importantly, shut-off, runoff, all this because I was so excited about agriculture and the water and what I can do for the future. I put myself through college at AWC. Then I took an opportunity with water with Dr. Shanna Rock, which is a U of A extension, and I started doing search on the agriculture summit that they have every year here in Yuma County. I've been for it the past 4 years. I took my grower's permit, PSA grower. It was a 3-day course from Cornell University given by the state, which is approved for the whole nation. This is stuff like this that gets me excited. Anything I can help Arizona in its water crisis, but most importantly, take care of agriculture and ranching, that's what I'm all about. I'm about educating people because there's a lot of times that people do not know the frustration and the issues that go into agriculture, not just through the water conservation issues, but also through red flags, through, checking the land 4x4, 10x10, soil, brackish water, just there's a lot of stuff that goes into agriculture that people just think, oh, they're just making money overhand. They don't understand. They're working very hard as a community and employment to make sure the United States is fed.
Well, farmers, ranchers, anyone that has that interacts with a farm-based or a land use-based economy, right? Those are the guys that are out there. Those are the folks that listen to our show, and for sure, they know exactly what's going on. They're interested in what you have to say. So, you're an advocate of protecting water rights for farmers and ranchers. How'd you kind of circle up the wagons and tell us your stance, your position from that standpoint?
Well, obviously, we know right now if you break it down, how people realize what water base is used. We are 70% of the water in Arizona is used by agriculture. About 20% is used for commercial buildings, which have their own water regeneration plant. And we have about 10% in residential. That's what we're using currently. We use, and I think we're the advocate for the whole world in Yuma County, majority, to have the best proper way of using the water. We have the canal. We have other stuff that makes sure that we use. There's something coming in new that I'm excited is if you heard of, I'm sure you might have heard of a desert control, the LNC, liquid natural clay. So what it is a compound to use less water and give more yield and save water, energy, and keep our nutrients. This is stuff like this that I'm on cutting edge. Whatever we can do to save more water and get better yield and support our water conservation in Arizona, but don't cut the water.
Yeah.
Don't cut the water that's used for the United States. That's never going to be the best bet. We need to start cutting at other areas where sometimes the residential needs to be cut. Sometimes we have to step up to the commercials and say, hey, you're going to have to put plants that re-clean and recycle your water, which some already do, but some smaller plants that are grandfathered don't have that. And those are the talks that I'm more interested in talking about agriculture. Agriculture should never be cut because if there's no water, there's no food, there's no life on this planet.
You're right. How do you see the status or the current status of water in Arizona for its future?
We know supposedly we're supposed to wait till August for the projected model. We know this. But they've already came out with it, which is kind of tough. How are you going to have a projected model when we just barely got the cap, barely come through? So to have this model already come out sounds a little political, but it's understanding. We're back to tier 1, back to 2.8 million acres per seed. And just for the people that might not be agriculture specialists or in that aspect, I make sure people understand 1 acre feeds 3 families per year. And that's kind of how you break it down. To me, education is very important. I don't have to tell the farmer, I don't have to tell anyone that has to do with cattle, agriculture. They already know, they get it. But education has always been the big key for understanding why we should not break and take away water from agriculture, cattle, or farming. We can cut in other locations, just like CAP, Central Arizona Project, same exact thing. They have a storage of water right there in McNeed. And we want to make sure that people are educated because educated people make the best decisions. And I'm going to take that information and make sure I go up to the legislation and invite them to tour the farms, tour the agriculture, tour the canals, tour Central Arizona Project, go up to Lake Mead. They need to understand the importance, not just on paper, but the importance of what water can create and what water does for food and our economy, and most importantly, our nation to survive and eat. This, to me, is the most important thing that I need to advocate for, because when you start saying, let's cut back and let's roll ball on water for agriculture, that is not the correct answer for the future. The correct answer for the future is, what do we need to do as a step forward? Do we need to work more with Palo Verde plant? Now, I know they want to talk about desalination here in Yuma from the Cortez. You're talking about making millions and millions of dollars in the Yuma plant because it is very outdated. Now we go to Palo Verde, and it is the cleanest in the nation. It is one of the largest 60 million property tax single Arizona. They employ 2,000 people. 1/3 of them are veterans, which is beautiful, but they're not running at full capacity. We need to talk real strategies, real future, and it comes by talking to commercial, but most importantly, residents. We need to talk to residential to not leave their sinks open while running their water, washing their clothes or dishes, because a lot of that does add up. We know it's using recycled water into the municipalities and some of the rural areas. Now, we talk about grayish, brackish water in the ground. Any water is good. Anyone. I don't care if it's a little smelly, a little dirty. There's ways to clean it up and be good. But no one wants to talk about that. Everyone wants to talk about, I want a bottle of water because it's clean. You know what? Any kind of water, beggars can't be choosers, is good. We just need to find a way how to put it together and move on to the future about cleaning, being great neighbors. And you should never cut agriculture, ranching, cattle. That is what feeds you. I mean, if you're talking about you're on a diet, well, what do you eat? You eat greens. Well, greens take water. So how are you going to get those greens if you got no water?
I can certainly feel the passion there. I can certainly feel the passion there, Gary, for sure. Is there a, based on looking at land use-based economy, which is, what Arizona is, your fervent desire to improve water conservation, agriculture, all the infrastructure that goes to support it. Any other candidate out there doing, with the same kind of point of view of yours?
Well, I'm sure there might be some out there that have put themselves through almost 3 years of college, getting the certificates and going to trainings and being an advocate, regardless if you're not already elected. There's not many of those. We've been blessed to have Senator Kerr be an advocate for LD 25, and
Yep.
she is like the main person for water. It's sad to see her retire, and I take the lead from her because she empowered me to jump on, and that's what I want to be. I want to be the advocate for LD 25, but not just LD 25. I want to be for the state of Arizona, but most importantly, I want to make sure our state is the leading choice in America and the nation for water conservation, agriculture, farming, and ranching.
Well, Rob is certainly an advocate. He's an Arizona resident. I have family. My oldest daughter is a resident of Arizona. So I see the passion there. But looking at the election coming up. So if you're elected, what's your first 90 days in office look like, Gary?
Well, I've always been reaching out to a lot of these farmers, a lot of these ranchers. To me, to be able to lead and do a bill, you have to combine and talk about it. Let's talk about a Christmas list. Everyone wants all this from Santa. But let's be real. What can we get and what's needed now? And having a Democratic governor and a Democratic AG, we need to understand what is bipartisan that we get full support, that our governor will sign and support our agriculture economy, but most importantly, our water. Because we know the water rights belong to the BLM, but we still have our local choices where our water conservation and our water management, and we need to work that way. So when I'm talking about what's for the future and what I'm looking to do the first 90 days, I'm looking to empower opportunities for clean energy, water conservation, preserve the water, nutrients, whatever we need to do to create yield, more profit, less water use. Now, if that comes with different information, new technology, I'm all for it. We know the evaporation is going faster with the sun getting a little hotter than normal. We need to start working harder and find out what's out there that might not be out there on the federal level, but we need to go internationally and see what they're doing. And I know you guys were talking about solar on the farms. I'm all for that. In Germany, they're doing it already. Why not try it in a certain section in Yuma County, which U of A has an outpost here, and they're testing a lot of use of all autonomous. Agriculture is now becoming something of the near future that's way ahead of anything else. It's almost like the military futuristic goals. We have autonomous, we have biologists. We're looking for the best near future, and it's not for today, not for tomorrow. It's for our future generation past 100 years, 200 years, 300 years in Arizona. And to me, those are the talks. Not just a quick Band-Aid to put on, but something that will actually solve the problem and put us in the positive, progressive movement to make sure that we are advocates and our agriculture is here for 10 more generations, if not more.
Yeah, I'm a new guy to Arizona, and my granddaughter just chose to go to University of Arizona, and she'll be doing that in a couple of weeks. I noticed they had, which I haven't been to, and I talked to Chris about this. Something I definitely want to see is their biosphere that they have, and does the state work with universities on technology? Or have any arrangements with any of them, whether it's ASU or any of the universities or colleges here, to talk about that? And then the question I always like to ask everybody: if you were appointed czar of of Arizona, and if you fix Arizona, you probably fix California after that. but what do you see as the top 3 issues plaguing the water industry here? And then what would you do to get it fixed?
I'll start from the first one. U of A is obviously nothing but agriculture here in Yuma County and other places, which is awesome. We need more universities to jump into that, not just U of A being for agriculture. We like ASU, all the colleges to be a part of agriculture because that's a big trade. That's a big importance. We need biologists. We need people that are creating the new future of autonomous vehicles that's on the farm. That stuff right there we can keep in-house. And when I mean in-house, in Arizona.
Right.
That way they understand the difference between Arizona, a different area in California, Colorado, Wyoming. It's all different basins and different type of agriculture and water breakdown. That to me is very big, is education and getting people for it, employment, because that's the future. Now, if you ask me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Gary, I was just going to ask you. I watched the chat board as we're on air here. A couple of listeners asking, who's the incumbent for you? Can you answer that for them real quick?
Yes. So I'm in a district that LD 25 has 2 elected officials. One is Michael Carbone, and the second one is Tim Dunn. Tim Dunn is turned out, and he will be running for state senate in LD 25. So I am going for the open seat. That way, there's always been one in Yuma elected and one in West Maricopa elected, either Buckeye or Waddell or Surprise. And that's usually how LD 25 is broken down, is one in Yuma County and one in West Maricopa.
Okay.
As you see the expansion of industry in Arizona, I mean, a big deal, right? Everybody sees it. It's on the news, and of course, I get a good feed from, as I mentioned before, my family in Arizona there. Looking at the issue of taxes, right? Inflation, Arizona jobs, and all that kind of stuff. Are you fighting hard for those guys?
I'm definitely fighting hard. I'm fighting for the middle class that's always forgotten. We're fighting for the hard workers. We're fighting for the people that, to them, what a dollar means might not be to someone else what a dollar means. We're working hard for them. I know there's a lot of housing crisis. Everyone wants to start building affordable housing real quick just to solve the problem. That's not solving the problem. That's actually creating more problems for water industry. Now, when we talk about just my district of LD 25, which encompasses Buckeye, that big area, we're the only part in Maricopa that's only built out 15%. Everyone else is about 70, 80, maybe 82, 83% built out. So West Maricopa, which is Buckeye, Waddell area, is going to be a boom. It is now going to be the Tel Aviv is coming out in the background by Tartesso. Combined between Prescott and Tempe, it is bigger, and it's still within Buckeye itself. Only imagine all the housing development that is coming in Buckeye. Now, it's not just the Buckeye. Now we're talking about commercial buildings right there on the 10 and everything coming out in Verrado Way. There is going to be a booming group of commercial buildings, studios as well, residential, and a lot of these family farms that have been there for generations and generations, they're going to have some tough times because they're going to try to choke them out in a non-offensive way, but offering them a lot of money to give up the space in farms so they can build either residence, commercial buildings, or studios. And that's the tough part because you scare enough people away because of the water. Some of these farmers, 5th generation, 6th generation, it's tough. They're strong people, but sometimes when you scare people so much and say you're not going to have any federal or state support, it's a tough one because we know a lot of these farmers, they put it all on the line every year, every year. And I don't want that for them. That's why I'm fighting really hard for them, and most importantly, the middle class, because they're the strong workers, they're the economy, and we need to make sure that's taken care of.
Good points. Very, very, very good points. I also heard that, I forget the gentleman's name, he was on All in the Family. He played the son-in-law. I forget his right name. Chris, would you know who that is? They call him Meathead. Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
Yeah. And I hear he's heading up bringing a movie studio to Buckeye with lots of business. Yeah. And that, again, I think when I was building my house here, they told me that Buckeye was the fastest growing city in the country. And I believe that. And you ride on the 10, and you see nothing but logistic places where they were warehouses, gigantic warehouses, whether it's Amazon, Prime, trucks all over the place, UPS, all these other logistics companies that store warehouses, Walmarts. I mean, it's incredible the size of these things. They're not just a little 50,000 square foot building. These things are huge. They take up blocks. And with all the people moving in, like you said, at the bottom of Verado and the 10 freeway, they're supposed to be building 2 hospitals, 2 different Banner Hospital and an Abrazo Hospital. They already got a Costco put in, and they got a whole bunch more things. But I had met, you've been here longer than I have, but I went down on Highway 85, and there's a restaurant. I don't know if you ever went to it. It's called the Sheep Camp. I don't know if you ever been to that. I went in there one day. My wife calls me. I was out talking to a customer and a client, and she said, "I'll meet you for lunch." And I found this place has got a 5-star review. Okay, drive down the highway and pull into this address, and I'm looking at this building and going, she's not going to like it. But yet, in the parking lot were these trucks that had to be like 150,000 large trucks. And you go inside, and what was there was all the major farm owners, ranch owners, like from Hickman Eggs and everything else, and they're sitting there with their broker talking about the business and where they see the marketplace. It was incredible. Nicest bunch of people. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't know if you heard, I think farming industry is the backbone of America, and we got to do everything to keep it. Like you said, without food, we're not here. And as we say at the end of our show, if you like green, you got to have blue. So we appreciate that. How do you think the election is going to go down with what you're saying about things? Do you think people will listen more to you and versus anybody else?
Well, like I said, my campaign has been strong for 10 months. We're hitting 55,387 miles in 10 months. I've given my word to the community in West Maricopa that I will be up there 3 times a week, and I have kept that word. Knocking doors between Buckeye, Waddell, and Surprise, all the way to the area where Tonopah is in Aguila, which no one goes down there. I'm the only one that has signs out there, knock the doors, talk to the convenience store owners, the employees in those areas. Went down to Palo Verde plant, made sure I toured Central Arizona Project, which I got a certificate from their university that they offered, a 3-hour course. I'm part of what I'm going to say I'm going to do. What I say, I do. And to me, that's the way I was raised from my dad. That was part of the Army. And to me, that's what I'm going to keep. I'm all about education, empowering people, and I'm the people's person. I'm there to learn and work harder for the people.
Fun question, Gary. Fun question, Gary. At the last minute here, you're talking about your baseball past, right? So in Arizona Diamondbacks, Go D's, and all that stuff. What's your background?
Baseball?
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I played baseball, and then I played baseball in minor league, and then I played internationally in Mexico. So Mexico plays year-round, so I had the opportunity and was blessed to play baseball year-round in Mexico until I was about 36 years old, before COVID hit. When COVID hit, I stayed stateside, started getting involved locally with city council, school board, mayoral, and then from there, I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to be a strong worker for the Republican Party, became precinct committeeman, state committeeman, Arizona GOP executive board member at large, and this year I was just blessed to be state delegate and national delegate for Congressional District 9. So I will be in Milwaukee April 15th nominating President Trump for the great state of Arizona Conference.
Great. How do people get a hold of you? Where can they find you on the internet or whatever to find out about your campaign?
All right. My internet is electsnyder.com. So elect, SNYDR.com. And my campaign cell phone is my personal cell phone because as an elected official, they should be able to contact you anytime. So my personal cell phone, which is my campaign cell phone, is area code 928-257-7290.
Excellent. All right, Gary. Go ahead, Gary. We're getting close. We have to turn it over to NBC for their news hour, but we appreciate that.
Not a problem.
So thank you for being on the show. We love you, and do a good job for us.
Thank you for the opportunity, and the most important thing in Arizona is education.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
And to our fans, we'll talk to you next week. We're off next week for the holiday. It's July 4th, but we'll be back the week after. So have a good weekend and a good holiday. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a good day.
NBC News on KC.